In the year 1959, British Columbia, Canada, we see a tall mountain shrouded in dense fog. Among the rocks of the area, we see an injured man crawling and seeking shelter, seemingly fleeing from something. Soon, he arrives at his climbing gear, but still continues to hear chilling sounds, akin to howls and growls. Terrified, he connects to the ropes and begins his descent down the mountain. It doesn't take long before, suddenly, something starts to pull him back up. He continues to slide down the rope, but unfortunately, it ends, and with no other choice, he chooses to leap off the cliff rather than face the unknown creature above. The scene then shifts to Washington, where in a Secret Service office, a secretary hands a report to an agent. As she leaves, the phone rings, and the man speaks with his superior, confirming that the mission has failed and that all individuals involved have lost contact. When questioned about the continuation of operations, he mentions that he has no more access to the mission site, but the superior asks for monitoring of the area to continue and to be notified if new energy spikes are detected. The agent confirms the order and states that he will recruit more people. In present times, we see a man and a woman, excellent climbers, challenging the difficult ascent of a steep mountain. Days later, the two are talking after another climb, accompanied by some others. Among them is the young William, an excellent climber. The young woman named Dana arrives and says that her friend Brett mentioned the path to the Forbidden Mountain is clear, but one of them mentions that it's been over 50 years since anyone dared to venture there, and what they know is that those who went never returned. William then, seeing his friend's fear, remarks that it's been 63 years, and he knows this because his grandfather was one of the people who ventured there and was never seen again. With this story, part of the group doesn't wish to climb the Forbidden Mountain in the following days. Meanwhile, a new agent confirms over the phone about a mission that failed many years ago. However, they have a member to verify. The next day, William speaks to Kurt, who is responsible for recruiting the climbing team. William thanks him for the invitation and then meets Connor, his father. He shares the news and about the trip, which leaves Connor sighing with worry. He and William's mother are concerned about their son's adventure and did not want him to go to the dangerous place, knowing the story regarding the young man's grandfather. However, William asserts that the decision is made and he will go. Connor confronts him about the challenge he wishes to face and states that his father had tried and never returned. His father questions the purpose of challenging the unknown and dangerous mountain since the last known climb was over 50 years ago and climbers never returned. Connor also raises the fact that the tribe living in the area has opened access to the site, but William does not know why. William attempts to reassure his father, stating that they have the best climbing equipment and he is now a grown young man who can take care of himself, which leaves his father upset. The young man also claims that he will be with the best climbers in the world, and he is one of them. Connor tries to change his son's mind one last time, but is unsuccessful. After saying goodbye, William drives to the location where the climbing group will participate in the expedition on what many call the Forbidden Wall. On the road, on his way to meet his companions, William encounters Benjamin, a climber who reaches the mountaintops and glides down using a parachute, as it is the best way to descend. Minutes later, William arrives at the site where the climbers' trailers are and meets Colton, the leader of the expedition. William asks about the free access, and Colton confirms that he doesn't know much, but knows that only their team has access. The climbing moment has not yet arrived, so William returns to rest in his car. Minutes later, an assistant to Colton named Carrie questions the fact that she was assigned to stay as the mission coordinator and cannot climb, despite being excellent at it. Colton, being the leader, says that he needs her in the trailer, but knowing that she really wants to climb, he tells her that if another opportunity arises, he will allow her to do so. Later, Colton gathers the team and explains how the excursion will be. William and Justin will remain at the base in case support is needed, while the others, Kristen, Emily, Lucky, Jesse, and Brad, will follow him on the adventure. Colton says the journey will be difficult, as it will take them several days to reach the top, and they cannot drill into the mountain since it is considered sacred. He introduces Carrie and Guustis to the team. The gentleman is in charge of the local lands, so they should show respect to him. Guustis explains the reasons for their presence, stating that a council debated and allowed them to climb. The man blesses the group and tells them that the great spirit of the raven will follow them. Colton thanks the opportunity they were given, and afterward, Guustis departs. Colton informs them that they will leave early the next morning. The group has a brief conversation among themselves before heading to their dormitories. The next day, the group begins their journey, and Carrie is in charge of communications with the team, alongside Gabe. They face a problem as they hear noises whose origin is still unknown. Later, by nightfall, the pairs are in their suspended tents, waiting for the next day to continue. Meanwhile, William goes out for a stroll and meets Guustis, who addresses the young man by name, saying that the ravens have told him who he is and that he was walking in the forest. Guustis surprises the young man by stating that he wanted to speak to him. The man tells William that he needs to finish what his grandfather started, as he had reached the top and knew the stories. However, what he knows, passed down through generations, is that there is an evil that fell from the sky at the mountain's peak, possibly spirits that, for many years, have tried to find a way to escape, and even the greatest warrior of the tribe could not stop such a creature. Rumors say that such a monstrosity can control people's minds and leave them insane, an entity that feeds on fear and despair. William questions what connection his grandfather has to this, and Guustis responds that for the creature to be freed, two people connected to the evil are needed. Guustis asserts that the young man's grandfather knew this and then sacrificed himself to save the world from this evil. William asks why they opened access, knowing that there is something that kills people, and Guustis explains that powerful governments are aware of the power that exists there and seek it, but do not know the evil that could fall upon the world if the dark creature is freed. Guustis tells the young man that he needs to continue where his grandfather left off and seal away the evil that dwells at the mountain's peak forever. This leaves the young man confused, as he is just a climber, but Guustis insists that he must ascend, for he has a strong mind and can achieve what his grandfather could not. Guustis advises him to focus on the silence in his mind and block the noises so that he becomes even more resilient. Before parting, Guustis hands William a rattle, affirming that the spirit of the raven will protect him. Meanwhile, the duo Lucky and Emily awaken in the early morning, not feeling too sleepy. They chat a bit to pass the time and share tales of adventures and tough climbs they've experienced. The next day, the team continues the ascent, and Colton follows guidelines, securing himself only with hooks between the rocks, avoiding drilling into the mountain. Suddenly, he hears a strange noise, like voices in his head. He then begins to see his colleagues in his mind, with disturbing and dark expressions. He communicates with everyone and realizes that the others also heard the noise coming from the mountain. Colton contacts the base team, but only strange noises come through as signals. Gabe, the radio frequency operator, tries to re-establish communication, but is unsuccessful. William enters the trailer and calls Carrie for a chat. He mentions the odd conversation he had with Chief Guustis, but she does not take him seriously. The group continues the climb, and for a moment, Jesse notices that Colton appears to be feeling unwell, but he quickly regains his composure. The pairs continue, and Brad approaches a dangerous part, alerting his companion Kristen to potential problems. He climbs ahead and disappears from the woman's view. A few minutes later, Kristen calls for him, but he does not respond. All she can hear is the sound of the wind around her, so she contacts Colton to report the situation. However, he responds somewhat carelessly. It doesn't take long for Kristen to receive an answer, but not in the way she wanted. All of Brad's equipment is untethered, which frightens the young woman. Then, she hears something dragging on the rocks above, and Colton's communication also encounters issues, with distorted voices emanating from the radio. Back with young Kristen, she soon discovers something terrible. Her colleague Brad, in a terrifying manner, approaches her as if he were a spider, climbing in an inverted manner without any safety equipment and now possessing a dark and eerie gaze. The voices begin to echo in her mind, and cunningly, the one possessed by evil tries to free the young woman from the rope. She attempts to stop him, but fails, then shifts to another rock beside her, trying to hold on while he grabs her equipment anchored in the mountain and tosses it into the abyss. Climbing with ease and seemingly impossibly, Brad raises his arm to push Kristen, but suddenly he snaps back to consciousness, unaware of what he has done, and is no longer under the evil's control. He falls to his death, leaving the young colleague terrified by the scene. Now, without any equipment, she can only cling to the hook secured in the rock. The group at the base has been listening through the radio communicator, but all that can be heard are screaming noises and distorted sounds resembling growls. Then, they start hearing human voices, which sound like crying. Upon establishing contact, they realize it is Kristen, who is crying over the loss of her colleague, but the communication is still not clear. On the other hand, Colton speaks with the young woman, not knowing how this happened. Terrified, she tells the leader that the man simply went insane. Colton's voice questions whether she informed the others, but the truth is that she cannot confirm if the information reached the base team. Meanwhile, Carrie, without any response on the radio communication, releases William and Justin to start the ascent in Kristen's position. They head towards the location but encounter Benjamin's van along the way, so William goes to ask for a parachute. Continuing the ascent, the rest of the group has heard about the incident and is worried. However, Colton orders them to proceed, claiming that those who remained at the base will handle the situation. Before starting the climb, William recounts the story Guustis told him, and in parts, they all believe it. Young Kristen attempts to continue the ascent without the support of ropes, but still frightened, fears for her life. Meanwhile, the other part of the team continues the challenging climb. Minutes later, the two climbers keep climbing, but Justin runs into trouble and ends up slipping. Unfortunately, in the process, he severely hurts his leg and cannot continue. William contacts Carrie and, seeing that the group's situation is not looking good, she reports that she will find them. Gabe tries to convince him to stay, but she knows her experience and support now are essential. Upon leaving the trailer, she encounters Guustis bringing Brad's helmet, which has a camera, and says that when they review the footage, they should not deduce what they see, but rather what they can hear. Carrie states that she needs to leave now because she will help an injured colleague. Guustis advises her not to climb any higher for her safety. He also mentions that William is already too far for her to reach. Worried, she leaves the camera with Gabe, who ends up turning off the radio communicator. He plugs in the camera's memory and starts viewing the footage. The video scene displays firsthand when Brad attacks his colleague, and this intrigues Gabe. But the worst part is that the noise heard resembles the noises on the radio. He then finally grabs an antenna amplifier to fix it. Back with William, he has climbed higher and no longer has any safety ropes. Thus, he must release it so it can serve as support for Carrie's ascent to rescue the injured Justin. Young Kristen is still standing still while William continues without a safety rope, and for a moment, he nearly falls. He has brief hallucinations in his mind, but manages to silence his thoughts and pushes forward. Courageously, he climbs the dangerous mountain without any safety measures. Fortunately, it doesn't take long for Carrie to reach Justin. He says they need to descend before it gets dark, but for a moment, the climber aspires to continue the ascent. However, her colleague convinces her to come down. As dusk approaches, William finally finds Kristen, and she is very happy to see him. The entire team then prepares to spend another night hanging on the perilous mountain. While chatting with Emily, Lucky questions their situation, stating that in any other climb, when they encountered difficulties or an accident, they would retreat and give up. But this time it seems something is convincing them to conquer the mountain's peak, including Colton, who shows no sensitivity when Jesse inquires about what happened, and all he wants is to reach the top of the mountain. The duo William and Kristen share a bit of conversation. She recounts the final moments of Brad. She describes how the man was acting, leaving William in disbelief, as that seems practically impossible. However, seeing the shock on his colleague's face, he begins to believe. He then decides to share about the conversation he had with Guustis. It is still night, and Carrie is taking Justin to the trailer, but they are startled by Gabe, who frightens them. Yet his presence there is for a purpose. He urges them to hurry, as he wants to show them something. Back with Kristen, upon hearing the crazy story, she does not believe there is a malignant and deadly creature on the mountain. But connecting the events, the truth might be what Guustis told them. Wanting to communicate with the others, they consider climbing higher so the radio signal can reach them, allowing them to talk. Back at the trailer, Gabe showcases Brad's attack footage, and this leaves them confused and terrified. However, what Gabe wants to display are sounds he managed to separate. They can hear what resembles a group of voices singing something. Then, Justin comments that the story told to William makes sense, but he mentions that the young man did not tell him everything. Returning to the suspended tents, Lucky is awakened by a swinging motion and notices that Emily is not sleeping. When he steps out to check, he discovers that the young woman is unfastening the tent. When the possessed one sees the young man, she lunges to untie the cords that hold him. Lucky screams and alerts Colton, and the possessed woman scuttles like a spider up the wall of death, but soon enough her scream is heard. Suddenly, a loud noise torments William's mind, and he wakes up dazed. Fearing the worst may happen, he decides to return to the climb when dawn breaks. Lucky reports that Emily tried to kill him and then fell to her death. He claims he won't continue and will descend from the mountain. Fearing the events, Jesse opts to change tents. At the trailer, Gabe continues working on decoding the audio and discovers strange sound waves. With the help of an old friend, he discovers that it was coming from within Brad, as if someone else was inside him. As day breaks, William and his colleague commence their ascent. At the trailer, Gabe plays the decoded sound, and then they can distinctly hear a deep male voice saying, "I'm here. Come to me." Following that, Gabe mentions that the creature or entity residing at the mountain's peak is calling them. Meanwhile, Lucky and Jesse begin their descent, going against Colton's decision to climb. Minutes later, William manages to establish communication with the group and is informed about what happened to Emily. Contrary to everyone's decision, including Carrie's, Colton and William aim to reach the summit, leading them to decide to continue together to the top, with Kristen joining. However, when William finds Colton, he releases the support rope for the young woman, leaving her behind in the ascent. Now the climb continues only between the two experienced climbers. The situation frustrates Carrie, but she cannot stop the men's reckless actions any longer. When she calms down and talks with Gabe, he tells her that he could hear everyone's voices except Colton's. He believes that based on Guustis' story, Colton is likely already possessed. Carrie has her doubts, but Gabe considers something that could confirm his suspicion. After a long ascent, William and Colton finally reach the peak and discover the remains of a man who arrived there many years ago. Their conversation begins to seem strange when Colton questions William about being the agency's chosen one to uncover the happenings there in case he failed. However, the young man claims he knows nothing about the agency and asks Colton why he is unaware of what is going on up there and what the tribe tells. Noticing that Colton is not who he thinks he is, William discerns that Kristen is actually the person Colton referred to. The trio finds themselves in a confusing gathering as they see a metallic rock different from the others nearby. While Kristen glares intensely at her competitor, Gabe communicates with them through the radio and asks each to say the phrase, "I'm here." The trio speaks, and after they do, Gabe declares that he knows who is possessed. Suddenly, Lucky emerges and tackles Colton. The others grow fearful and realize that Jesse's fate was not to reach safety below, for Lucky killed her beforehand. The stone activates, and colorful signals surround it. Then, the possessed Lucky attacks the duo, but the agent manages to take him down. The creature dwelling inside the rock, seeing the man's weakness, possesses Kristen, leaving the bewildered Lucky unable to comprehend anything. Unfortunately, the woman kills the man and throws him into the abyss. William grabs the rattle Guustis gave him, and before the possessed one can stop him, he strikes the rock, causing the possession frequencies to cease. Kristen returns to normal, and they both go to check on Colton, but unfortunately, his last words are, "He will not give up." After resisting the evil attempting to dominate them, the two jump off the mountain with their parachute. Meanwhile, the agency is informed of the mission's outcome. The next day, William returns home, leaving his father happy to see him safe. He is eager to share about the adventure, but what he does not know is that the evil that resides on the mountain will continue to seek a way out, this time through Colton.